Chapter 11. Fredo Corleone whipped his rented Chevrolet up the drive and shammed on the brakes under the valet parking overhang. In back, Figaro woke up cursing in English, capra in Sicilian. "See you up there, fellas," Fredo said, hopping out. He peeled off a 20 for the valet, then saw he was irregular and paused. "Just curious, what's the biggest tip you ever got?" The man looked up at him funny. 100, he said. Once. Fontaine, Fredo thought. He just knew it. He peeled off 200. "Find me a good spot, okay? And get those bums out of the back first." "So whose record did I break?" "Yours, sir," the valet said. "Just last week." Fredo laughed, went inside, and broke into a jog. 3 in the morning. But inside the castle in the sand, about the only way a person would know it wasn't a more decent hour was the presence of hypnotized women in housecoats and curlers, cigarettes dangling from the corners of their grim, unmade mouths, feeding coins into the slot machines as if it were a part of making supper for an ungrateful family. Not a lot of people run through casinos, but none of those dames, and no one at the blackjack tables either, so much as looked up. The pit bosses looked, of course, and so did the eye in the sky if there was anyone up there. But these were men who'd seen Fredo Corleone hurry past them before, which is another way of saying that if anyone not associated with the security cameras or the Nevada Gaming Commission asked them if they'd seen Mr. Corleone go by, they'd have frowned and said, "Who?" He lived in a suite on the 3rd floor, 5 rooms, including a den with a bar and a tournament-sized pool table. He'd been gone for 2 weeks, attending to business in New York and trying to help his mother get squared away for the move west. As soon as he opened the door, he knew in his gut that something was wrong. The first concrete thing he noticed was that the curtains were drawn and the place was inky dark. Fredo never closed his curtains, and he never turned off his television set, even when he went to the test pattern, even when he left town. When he slept during the day, he used one of those masks. He jumped back into the hall, out of the line of fire, and reached into his jacket for his gun. No gun. That gorgeous Colt Peacemaker, the gun that had brought down 10,000 desperados in 1,000 dusty movies, lost somewhere in the wilds of Greater Detroit. At the other end of the hall, a door opened and some old frump in a hairnet and a housecoat came out, carrying a tin cup full of coins and an actual horseshoe. Behind, he trailed some milk toast in an undershirt, Bermuda shorts, and a shiny white cowboy hat he must have bought earlier that day. Fredo froze. There was no noise at all from his room. The frump must have seen Fredo crouching outside a door down the hall, but she kept her head down and headed straight for the stairs. The husband waved, his face contorted into a desperate rictus. The stairwell door closed. Fredo counted to 10. "Hello?" he called. "Who's in here?" He should have gone and gotten security, but he was exhausted and not thinking straight. He just wanted to grab a quick shower and get up to the ballroom. He did not want to be the candy ass who called hotel security because some new maid hadn't told never to shut Mr. Corleone's curtains or turn off his television set. There was no noise at all. That had to be it, he thought, a new maid. As he walked in and reached for the light, the thought struck him that this was exactly the moment when guys got a slug right between the eyes, when they let down their guard and thought, "Ah, fuck it, it's nothing." The instant he flicked the switch, the toilet flushed. His heart nearly knocked the meat from his ribs, but before he had a chance to run or duck or even shout, "Who's there?" out of the open door of the bathroom came a naked woman, platinum blonde. She screamed. "My God," she said, "you scared the crap out of me." "The crap." Thick French accent. It sounded real. Fredo closed the hallway door behind him and felt his heart slow down a little. "Do I know you?" She walked toward him and smiled. Her bush was jet black, though her eyebrows were also blonde.
I've been waiting for you. Do you know how long?
Seriously, sweetheart, who are you? What the hell is going on here? Who let you in?
Since 5 o'clock in the afternoon, she said.
She pointed to the champagne bucket next to his bed.
The ice, it finished melting hours ago.
She shrugged. She made her little tits bounce. She had dull red nipples so big round they practically covered the whole business.
I'm sorry, but the bottle, it is empty now, too.
The accent was real. She was also slurring her words. Honey, he said, I don't think you know who you're dealing with, okay?
I think I might.
I think. She jutted one of her hips and stuck out a pouty lower lip.
You're Fredo Corleone, yes?
Afraid. Why don't you start telling me who you are? She extended her hand and giggled.
My name is Rita, Marguerite, but...
She dipped a naked shoulder, shy now.
I use Rita now.
Fredo didn't shake her hand. Hello, Rita. The reason I shouldn't have you thrown in jail for breaking and entering is what?
It's not enough that a naked woman is waiting in your room to make love to you, huh?
I'm losing my patience with you, doll.
Ah,
she threw back her head, exasperated.
You are so fun. Johnny Fontaine sent me, all right? I am...
She laughed, as if at a rueful private joke.
I am a present for you, no? Johnny said, you know, that I was to be naked and in your bed waiting.
She blushed.
But a girl, she drinks the champagne. She's going to have the tea.
Tea? That was real nice from Mr. Fontaine, but it's awful late. You're awful drunk, and I'm awful tired. On top of which I still got one more thing to do tonight. This morning, whatever. You should go, hon. If you need a cab or something, I got it. She nodded, turned around, and went to get her clothes, which she'd folded so neatly on the nightstand it broke his heart. She had nice muscular legs. First he had noticed it. He went into his closet to grab his own change of clothes. When he came back, the only thing she'd managed to put on was a flowery cotton bra. You would never understand that. You would think they would always cover up their snatch first, since that's usually what came off last. But leave a woman alone to get dressed, and most of them start with the bra. She had her head in her hands, and she was sitting on the edge of the bed, crying. Drunk broads, he thought, shaking his head.
I'm so sorry,
she said. Sorry nothing, Fredo said. Look, it's not any sort of, I don't know. He put his hand on her cheek. She looked up at him. Real tears, and she was fighting them. She looked mad at herself. You're a beautiful girl, okay? It's just that it's late, and I got some place to be. It's business. I mean, I guess if you really want to wait here, She shook her head.
You do not understand.
She wiped her face with her underpants. They matched the bra. He caught a glimpse of the label, Sears.
I don't do this. I mean...
She rolled her eyes and looked at the ceiling.
I mean, I do this, just not...
She let out a deep breath.
I'm a dancer, okay? I'm in a show, now. A tasteful one, too. Not even topless. This was supposed to be a lark. That's the word, yes. A dare I made to myself. I'm not a...
Fredo got her a handkerchief. He'd been with a lot of broads since he'd moved to Las Vegas, and the one thing he'd learned about their crying is that it always was better to shut up and give them a nice handkerchief than to tell them everything would be okay. He sat down next to her. He needed to get going. He ran his hand over her back. The little bit of a round ass he could see had skin tighter and smoother than most women, even really young ones, managed to have on their faces. Gotta hand it to dancers. Their bottom halves were something else. Finally, he just couldn't take any more time for this. Johnny was just trying to be a good guy, but it was probably true he'd done her first and turned her head all around and gotten her to agree to do something that she wouldn't have done in a million years back in whatever village in France she came from. I got an idea, he said. She looked up at him. It looked like she'd gotten the tears under control. How much did Johnny pay you to come up here?
$1,000.
Wait right here. Fredo went into the den, pulled back the hinged oil-painting replica of the Mona Lisa, opened his safe, and got out $2,000 bills. She'd probably never seen one of these before in her life, much less two. The government had hardly bothered to design it. The back just said $1,000. And Cleveland on the front? What the fuck had Cleveland ever done? He folded the bills in half, came back out, and pressed them into her hand. Keep the 1,000 you already got, he said, and keep these too. You don't gotta feel bad you're a whore, right? Because how can you be a whore if we don't, you know?
Fuck,
she said. There was a hopeful tone in her voice that confused Fredo, as if fucking would cheer her up or something. He'd been trying not to even say fuck, since she was all bent out of shape about being a fucking hooker. Sure, he said. If we don't fuck, just one catch. She nodded, taking the money and slipping it into the pocket in the red dress beside her. All you have to do is go back to Johnny and, when he asked how it was, and he would, Fredo knew that was just how Johnny was. You got to promise to tell him. Fredo paused to wink and flash her a grin. That I was hands down the best you ever had.
Hands down,
she repeated, slipping on her underpants now. She seemed sad about it.
All right.
Atta girl. The phone rang. It was Figaro, which is what he'd been calling the new bodyguard, whose name it embarrassed him not to be able to keep straight. Yes, Fredo said. He was fine. As he watched her get dressed, he took off his shoes and socks and shirt. He'd be up in no time, he said. Figaro said there were still guys up there. Fredo said that was good. Was Michael still there? He wasn't. Too bad. Relieved, Fredo hung up. He had stopped wearing undershirts a long time ago, after that one movie. After that, a guy wears an undershirt and these modern girls think he's just off the boat. Only after he was standing there bare-chested in just his pants did it occur to him that if he was half the gentleman he was pretending to be, he'd either have waited for her to go or else himself gone into another room. Her dress was red satin. Somehow, with it on, seeing her like that and knowing about the cheap underwear underneath, he felt differently about her. He felt something.
That's a nice painting, she said.
She pointed to the Madonna in the small pine frame over his bed. The painting that had come with the room was a huge thing with an Indian on a white horse, slumped in the saddle, watching the sunset.
Did you paint it?
What? No.
Do you know the artist?
It's just a painting, okay?
I had a long look at it. That model, she has no vanity. It's a good piece.
A good piece?
I studied art.
She looked down. Her toenail polish was chipped.
A long time ago.
It is a good piece, he said.
Okay,
she said, grabbing her purse. Okay, he said, walking her to the door. She pulled out a cigarette. He reached into his pocket. Shit, he said. I lost my lighter.
You're sweet,
she said, tucking the cigarette behind his ear. Not really, he said. He gave her back the cigarette. Not my brand, honey. She leaned toward him. It had all the makings of a peck on the cheek, but something else Fredo had learned about these girls on the make in the West. A lot of things at 3 in the morning that have the look of something that would make sense by the rules of 3 in the afternoon turn into things that men asleep in their beds on Long Island would never believe. Her lips parted. His tongue obeyed, driving into her little wet mouth, sliding his hands through her coarse platinum hair. A tiny gasp came out of her that seemed to startle them both. They looked into each other's eyes. Hers grew wide, as if she'd just found an earring she'd lost. She was right. She wasn't a pro. They don't look at you like that.
My life,
she said.
It is so fucking complicated.
Everybody thinks that, Fredo said. Probably you're right, though. About you. This Rita had a crooked grin.
Oh, she said. And what about you, eh?
I can't complain, he said. Though I still do. I guess I got it all under control, though.
You think so?
With her index finger she touched his bare rib cage and did a little screwdriver thing. They kissed again. Her mouth was sour from all that champagne, but he stayed with it.
Freddy Corleone,
she said. If this hadn't been 3 in the morning, it would have occurred to him right away that it was stupid to run the risk that some day this girl would blab about how she was bare-ass naked in front of Fredo Corleone and he paid her $2,000 not to fuck her. Why was he in a hurry to get upstairs? Anything worth being there for was over. At your service, he said.
You dirty rat,
she said. She said it weird. Say what?
Nothing,
she said. She sighed heavily and reached for the doorknob.
See you in the funny papers, okay?
Oh, right. She'd been doing an impression of some movie gangster. He put his hand on her hand. Stay, he said. She screwed up that funny lopsided mouth.
I don't know,
she said.
Will you take your money back?
I never paid you for that, he said. I paid you to give Johnny Fontaine nightmares. She seemed deep in thought about this.
So could I just give him his money back, yes?
Fredo smiled. Perfect, he said. Tell him, you know, the thing I paid you to tell him. You want me to write it down or you got it?
Hands down,
she said.
Best I ever had. Got it.
And then tell him to take his money back, he said. It was that good.
I'm not sure about this,
she said.
Maybe tomorrow? We could start over. A date or something?
Today's tomorrow, baby. She still looked deep in thought. She put her finger in her mouth and sucked on it and ran it slowly down Fredo's bare chest from his neck to his belt buckle. She kept her hand there. I love sex. She said it like an admission of defeat. Her voice was small, too, not the husky voices people always talk about with French girls. She was still slurring her words. It's bad, you know, like a man, I love it. For a moment, the line, like a man, I love it, went through Fredo like an electric shock. Though of course she didn't mean it the way, for a split second he was afraid she did. Then he snapped out of it and grabbed onto those little tits with both hands. She moaned, but now she did sound like a pro, trying too hard. It couldn't feel that good, her tits. They moved to the bed, and she undid his belt and yanked at his pants and his underwear. Fredo fell back on the bed. She stood over him and reached back to unzip her dress. Don't, he said. She turned around for him to do it. Keep it on, he said. It's dynamite. She shrugged and sat down beside him on the bed. They kissed for a while and she put her hand on his cock. He could have blamed it on all the drinking he'd done today, this morning, and who knows how much he had waiting at the Detroit airport, though nothing since then. And also how tired he was, the jet lag. He didn't want to think about the other thing. That never happened. And anyway, he'd knocked up better showgirls than this here in his sleep. Now that he was thinking about it, of course, he was doomed. So, okay, don't think about my cock, he thought. He thought about her, kissing her and grabbing her tits, and how great it would be to fuck her with that skinny dress on, which could happen in like 10 seconds if he could just stop thinking about all the things he was thinking about. If he could just stop thinking at all. He really needed to go easier on the booze. She dropped to her knees and took him in her mouth so fast he couldn't say no. A terrible shiver went through him. No, he said, tugging her up to him by her armpits. She looked hurt. I don't do that, he said. Don't be sore, okay? Come on and kiss me. She obeyed. He did keep her hand on him and tugged her flowered Sears underpants down and did the same for her. They kissed some more. How about you get on your knees? She sighed. She looked like she was losing her patience. She looked like a girl at work. No, he said. Like I said. Then he tried to sound more tender. It wasn't anything she'd done wrong. She seemed like a good egg who'd been willing to fuck him for nothing, probably because she'd heard rumors he was a dangerous gangster, but also because he'd been nice to her when he maybe didn't have to. He positioned her on her knees and hiked up her red dress and grabbed himself and with the other hand groped her cunt. She reached back to help him. Something about the vulnerability of that gesture made him go rock hard in her hand, and he was in, and he was going for it from thrust number 1. He had to act and not think. He grabbed onto her hips, curling his fingers in by the bones. He told her to beg him for it. She started chanting about how badly she wanted it and not to stop, and then just, over and over, "Big man, big man, big man," and he closed his eyes and sped up, as fast as he had the strength to go. His body tensed and cried out. "Pull out," she said, panting. "Big man, pull out," in that squeaky voice. "Big man." He didn't. He ground his hips in a twitchy circle against her muscular dancer's ass, oozing what little he had left into her. After that, his prick was so sensitive it hurt and he had to pull it out. It would have been sexy, dribbling little wet pearls onto her ass in that red dress. What could be better than that? He couldn't have said why he didn't do it. That's not true. He knew. He liked knocking them up. He couldn't have said why, though that wasn't the whole truth either. He flopped on his back. He closed his eyes and hit his head with the heel of his hand. A half-dozen little staccato blows. With every fiber of his being, he hated himself. Rita rolled onto her side and into a ball. Naturally, she started crying again. He got up and went to the windows and threw the curtains open. Better. He did love that neon light. It wouldn't be dark much longer. The phone rang again. He took it in the den. He told Figaro to keep his pants on. He'd be right up. Figaro said it was good they'd decided to drive up and not stay in LA because there was some news Fredo would probably want to hear about in person. And Fredo asked Figaro if he was deaf. He said he'd be right up, okay? Fredo got another clean linen handkerchief, the best money could buy, and lay back down on the bed beside Rita. "Hey, darling," he said, like a cowboy. "Hey, beautiful." She blew her nose and was spooky quiet. "I'll be right back," he said. He checked his watch, a habit he'd gotten into as a kid, and managed to shower and shave in less than 5 minutes. He put on a robe so thick it always felt to him like football shoulder pads and came back out, and she was still there. "I'm sorry," she said. He could have done without that. He wanted her to leave, yes, and right away, but he didn't want to feel like a shit about it. She wasn't crying, though, which was something. "That was sure fast," she said. "A shower." "I know where everything is by now." It was what he always said when people said that. "I should go. I'm sorry. I know I should go." "Stay as long as you want," he said. "I'm sorry as hell, but I've—" "Got business?" she said. "I know. I'm sorry." She dabbed her eyes and pointed to the bathroom. "I'll hurry." She did not, at least, say Titi. While she was in there, he threw on some clothes and called downstairs to arrange and pay for her cab. 12 excruciating minutes later she came out with her hair combed and her face pink from being scrubbed with her lipstick on and smelling of some kind of perfume that she must have had on when she got here. She wore it thick. There weren't a lot of things he found more disgusting than thick perfume. He turned on the television and herded her into the hall. "We got a deal, right?" he said as he pushed the button for the elevator. "We do." She held up her right palm. "I am," she said grimly, "a girl of my word." She forced a smile. "You're presuming I wouldn't say that anyway, hands down." What the fuck was there to say about that? He thought he should probably ask her for her number, but usually that only made things worse. The elevator showed up and put him out of the misery of his silence. He patted her back as she stepped on. "Good luck," she said, "with your business." She blew him a kiss. "Corleone." He watched the doors close. He looked at himself in the distortion of the buffed brass doors. There wasn't much to see. He hit the button of the 6th floor, planted his hands against the cool of the metal, and hung his weary head. Who said life was easy? Yet here he stood. He'd made his mistakes, like anybody, and lived to tell about it, unlike a lot of people he knew. The doors opened and he got in. People thought of him as a nice enough guy who was also weak and a fuck-up. He knew that. But how many guys could have withstood a day like today and held up any better than Federico Corleone, eh? He'd woken up in the middle of a really bad decision he couldn't let himself think any more about, not even knowing where he was, not even what fucking country. Yet he still managed by dawn's early light to haul ass out of there, and by some miraculous instinct in the right direction too. Okay, he left his gun behind, but in another country, so you had to think that was the end of that. He maybe fucked up a little bit at customs, but for Christ's sake the oranges weren't even his, and the drink he had was just an eye-opener, and dropping Joe Zalucci's name had been a calculated risk. Just as easily, it could have gotten Fredo waved through. But, okay, it hadn't. That said, how many guys could have stayed as cool as he had after the pinch? He walked the white line like a champ. The rubes in customs were in awe of him. 2 encores, perfect every time. He didn't say anything he didn't have to say, didn't even call in some lawyer. Dumb clucks let him go still thinking he was Carl Frederick, assistant manager of the Castle in the Sands trailer park, which, on paper, he was. He'd driven by it but never been there. In the end, the only reason people thought Mike was so brilliant and Fredo was such a fuck-up was that Mike wanted to build some big empire and all Fredo wanted was to have a good time and to have a little piece of the business that was his alone. Something bigger than a trailer park but smaller than General Motors. What the hell was wrong with that, huh? Yet even that was more than Mike would give him. Instead, he gave Fredo a fucking title. Underboss. Soto Capo. Might as well have made him court jester. Tit on a mule. Vice president. He got off on the 6th floor and used his passkey to enter the dummy room. This whole arrangement here, Fredo's idea. People loved it, and other people claimed to have thought of it. He had heard that other casinos were copying it. Big deal. Who needs credit for shit? But still. "A drink, sir?" asked the bartender on the secret landing. "Nah," Fredo said. "Just a cold beer, okay?" Probably he should take the stairs. Chance to get the blood flowing. But he was beat and the beer felt good and cold in his hand, and so he waited for this elevator to come too. When it did, Figaro and Capra and 2 of the New York guys came rolling out. They did not look like men who had come from the happy event they'd come from. This couldn't be attributed to Figaro learning that he'd missed out on his big night. This was the first one ever outside New York, so he'd have never guessed and nobody would have told him. "God damn," Figaro said. "We were about to send a search party. Actually, we are the search party. Where you been? You called me in my room 20 times. You fucking want to know where I've been?" "No, I mean, what took you so long? There were only a few people left when we got there, but now there's nobody. Excepting Rocco. He's waiting for you." The news Fredo was supposed to hear in person. "My family," Fredo said. Figaro shook his head. "Nothing like that. You should really just go up and see Rocco." Nobody up there?" asked Fredo. "Or just not so many guys, nobody up there? Other than Rocco, I mean." Capra, whose real name was Gaetano Paternostro, which was too much of a mouthful and also too regal for this baby-faced country boy, stopped Figaro before he could answer and asked him what Fredo just said, which Fredo had had it up to here with. Fredo was fluent, and this fucking barber might as well have been some mayo-slurping yutz from Ohio. As a bookie, the barber might have been a good earner, but so far it was hard for Fredo to see what beyond that Mike saw in the guy. "I asked our friend the barber of epic flatulence," Fredo said in Sicilian dialect. "How many of our other friends remained upstairs in the banquet hall?" Capra laughed. "Non lo so. 5 e forse 6. Fredo nodded. He'd stop up anyway. What was the point of driving up tonight instead of flying up tomorrow if he didn't even make an appearance? Look, he said to Figaro, why you think it took me so long? You think if I knew I'd fucking ask? Come on, Fredo. I'm given a job. I do a job. With all due respect, please, non rompermi I coglioni, eh? Capra and the other two men had gone to the bar. Coffee all around. I'm not busting your balls, Fredo arched an eyebrow. You mean you didn't hear her in the background there? You gotta be kidding me, since it had been the gist of his excuse this morning, too. French girl, dancer, I forgot to ask where. I ran into her the way up. One thing led to another. You know how it goes. Che fica. Figaro was bald, 10 years older than Fredo, and probably did not, hookers aside, know how it goes. He shook his head. You fucking guy. You're going for some kind of record. Someone had shut off the motor that made the ballroom rotate. The air was thick with smoke and spilled booze. At a table covered with a dirty white tablecloth sat 4 old guys from what used to be Tessio's regime, playing dominoes. 2 of them were the Dimicelli brothers, one of whom, Fredo couldn't keep them straight, had a boy, Eddie, who had gotten initiated that night. Fredo wasn't real good on the Brooklyn guys. Slumped alone in an aquamarine armchair was Rocco Lampone, staring out the window and muttering something to himself. Decor aside, it was as if Fredo had walked into one of those joints in Gawanu's where the regulars show up first thing in the morning for a chipped mug full of brandy-laced coffee and either sit there in silent misery or else pick fights about what's on the jukebox or what the world's coming to. Hey, hey, shouted one of the Dimicellis. If it ain't our underboss! Fredo waited for someone to make more of a joke about this. He hadn't asked for the title. He knew men thought he was weak. He knew they weren't clear on his responsibilities or Michael's reasons for creating the job. Missing the thing tonight wouldn't help matters. But the men at the table only nodded and grunted their hellos. Rocco motioned Fredo over. Next to him by the window was an empty metal chair. Outside, a brassy jazz combo on a makeshift stage on the rooftop below played a tune from that famous musical about Negroes. The whole rooftop swarmed with people, though there was no one in the swimming pool. A couple dozen slot machines, 4 blackjack tables, and 2 craps tables had been carted up here. There were several full bars and a breakfast buffet. What the fuck? Asked Fredo, pointing. Where you been? Detroit, Los Angeles. Missed my plane. Long story. It's one I heard. Where you been since you got back here? To the hotel. And made me wait here like I'm... Rocco rubbed his ruined knee. And made me wait. Here. For you. One of the men playing dominoes cackled. Fredo looked over his shoulder. The cackling guy rubbed the bald head of an unamused guy, who sat still and took it. Seriously, Fredo said. What's going on down there? Sit down, please. Rocco had never been much of a talker. It was clear from the look on his face that he hadn't figured out either what he had to say or how he was going to say it. Fredo sat. Is it Ma? He blurted out. No, Rocco shook his head. There was an accident, he said. Friends of ours. It looks, I would say, bad. On the rickety stage, the mayor of Las Vegas, a former Ziegfeld dancer herself, a terrific old broad, Fredo thought, who still had some of her looks, adjusted the fluorescent orange sash over the huge, impractical tits of the laughing brunette Hal Mitchell had, apparently after no competition at all, named Miss Atomic Bomb. The tiara was an even tougher fit. Miss Atomic Bomb had done her hair up in some great shellacked mass vaguely in the shape of a mushroom cloud. The mayor tried to put it on her from the front, which was impossible without leaning into her tits, so she tried it from behind and kept dropping it. The mayor stopped and handed the brunette her tiara. Miss Atomic Bomb had to crown herself. She was undaunted. This is a very young, happy woman. Her bathing suit was cut so low you could just about see her belly button. The trombonist struck up the band. Miss Atomic Bomb stepped to the microphone and started singing, "Praise the Lord," and passed the ammunition. The gaming tables were packed. Every slot machine was in use. Scattered everywhere were people on chaise lounges at the picnic tables, working on paper plates heaped with eggs. Fredo had gotten all the way down here, entourage in tow, even in his own hotel. Figaro and Capra plus those two guys from New York, his shadows until whatever happened because of those deaths in Cleveland happened, before he had any idea what was going on. Miss Atomic Bomb, who bounced as she sang, and she was smiling so wide with such an apparent sincerity that any reasonable person would have wanted to slap her or break her heart, started singing "Take the A Train," only with new lyrics, "Drop the A-bomb." Fredo was all for coaxing pigeons out of their rooms early and often, but he'd seen enough. He cocked his head toward the exit, and his bone-tired bodyguards looked at him like he was Jesus bearing chocolates. Just then, for no perceptible reason, everything got quiet. The band stopped. The drone of the guests' babble seemed to be sucked inside their throats, and the faint sounds of traffic from the street below made themselves known by ceasing to be. Fredo looked up, and there it was, a puffball of white smoke in the northeastern sky. And then sound returned. That was it? Everywhere on the roof, people lounged and gambled. Slot machine zombies kept their eyes steadfastly on the pinning fruit decals. The beauty queen seemed to be the only person applauding, and then a blast of heat that felt like standing inside a raging dryer vent lined with sun lamps snapped his head back. Fredo shielded his eyes with both hands. Seconds earlier, on a salt flat 65 miles away, there had been a place called Doomtown, a cluster of ordinary but variously constructed American homes, no two alike, each filled with the aroma of one of the various ordinary American meals, no two alike, cooling on the dining room table, each table surrounded by human figures dressed variously in brand new JCPenney clothing. In and around Doomtown, at various distances from the 50-foot tower that was the town's epicenter, were dozens of individually penned and oddly quiet pigs. As 200 American soldiers watched, crouched in trenches they dug themselves a mile from the outskirts of Doomtown, the U.S. government detonated a 29-kiloton bomb. In the first second after that, the houses, mannequins, food, and pigs nearest the tower became flame, wind, and dust. Farther away, as government cameras whirred, siding ignited and debris pulverized lawn jockeys and decapitated mannequins of smiling babies in disintegrating high chairs. Another half-second passed, and all that was dust too. In the half-second after that, a hot wind worse than 20 harnessed hurricanes leveled most of the rest of the town. Grit, it could have been anything: sand, glass, salt, particles of steel and wood or uranium, bone meal from pigs killed only because their skin superficially resembled that of a human so eager to study what remained of it, shot with supersonic speed through Thanksgiving dinner, shiny automobiles, plastic fathers with real tobacco in their pipes, solid-state monitoring equipment, brick walls, everything. The trenches collapsed. The soldiers were buried alive, but all survived, for now. Most of the pigs farther than 1,000 yards from the tower survived, but were so badly burned men shot them long before anyone got around to whipping out the Geiger counters. The Hagans would never find their arthritic dachshund, Garbanzo, just as well. The main stage was really Doomtown, officially classified, and yet, because those houses, built by a certain Las Vegas contractor, and even that food, flown in fresh from certain San Francisco food wholesalers, had to come from someplace, something more than a rumor and less than an open secret. The rooftop of Hal Mitchell's Castle in the Sand was just the lounge act. In the time it took Fredo Corleone to think to cover his eyes with both hands until the time his hands met his face, the intense heat waned. After that, some kind of dust fell, too small to see and barely big enough to feel. It was roundly ignored. People kept gambling and barely moved. "This can't be good," Fredo said. This shit here, you mean? Said the barber, motioning to the dust, to the very air. The young goatherd had his tongue out, almost as if he were catching snowflakes. The Reds want you to think this shit's something, the barber said. But that's just a conspiracy to make the U.S. stop all this testing so that the Russians can catch up to us. Believe me, this is nothing. Dust. Less than nothing. Sgo. Nothing, murmured Fredo, whisking the invisible dust from his shirt sleeves. Directly above, two of the huge mirrored windows in the ballroom concealed by the casino's top paparette were gone. The old domino players from the Patrick Henry Social Club stood there in full view in jowly disbelief. Fredo didn't look up. Why would he? The windows had imploded. Every shard of broken glass had been sucked inward.